What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala. It is the end of another week. Man, situation in Singapore is bubbling up, man.
Yeah, and to combat the issue of the racism divide, today we have brought on an expert in Singapore-China relations.
How is that combating the racism divide? Huh? You just made me a minority in our own studio.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've destroyed the safe space that
that's
used to
right.
exist.
It was always 50-50. Now it's 66-33. Okay. But thankfully, we know this gentleman. He is none other than Mr. Yao Li Shan, who was the writer-director of our recent Chinese TV series that premiered.
Yes, and
Yes.
it's called
The Amazing Showman.
Na So Hao Si, which is now available on MeWatch. And if you open up MeWatch, it's actually one of the main titles that is being promoted on the front page.
And the link is also in the show notes. So wherever you're listening to this, just check it out, okay?
Yeah.
But for now, welcome to Yala Bat, Mr. Yao Li Shan.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited, very honored to be on Singapore's premier podcast.
That's right. Thanks for reading out the script as we sent you last night over WhatsApp.
Yeah, we'll pay now you later for the shout
You
out.
send us your, what's the UEN? UEN?
QR code lah.
You already have it.
QR code.
You already have it.
Yeah.
So
So is this the first podcast you have ever done? You've ever been on?
Yes.
Oh, it is.
I mean, China don't have podcasts.
God. It's quite a big thing also in China.
Is that on a platform or something?
There's a few. There's a few, but I wouldn't be able to give you any names offhand because I don't really listen to podcasts.
Okay. So,
Okay.
but just rewind a bit. Why we are talking about Singapore, China, and all that is because, I mean, although Alex is worked on Mr. Yao,
Mr. Yao.
sorry, worked on our Amazing Showman series. Actually, he's been based in China as also writer director and doing a lot of different things within the film industry in China, of all places, for many years already. And he's worked with a lot of big names in the Chinese film industry as well. So maybe it's best for you to also just give us a rundown of what your CV is lah. But just cut all the boring bits. Just go straight to the hot stuff.
Most of it is boring.
I mean,
Yeah.
starting with the mistake you first did by going to AC as a secondary school, but then after that, how you corrected yourself, lah?
These are fighting words, man. These are fighting words.
No, because I mean we make fun of it, but the truth is the reputation of AC boys and their mastery of Chinese is usually that the stereotype is that ACS boys can't speak Chinese very well, lah. But you have lived and worked in China.
I would venture to say, right, that that what you just mentioned, that stereotype is not inaccurate, right? But I will say that if an ACS boy wants to be good at Chinese, his Chinese will be better than anyone else's.
Wow, you can never the AC pride still strong in you.
Yeah, so that's just a matter of whether you want to spend effort and time to do that or not.
What's the saying? The AC saying, the one that they always say at their weddings when
The best is yet to be, right?
Best is yet to be.
the best is yet to be.
Yeah.
So okay, so you graduated from so after university and all, you were not in media. You were not in
No.
film.
Okay, so my story is that I after NS I went off to the US for university, and I was taking a very conventional route. I went to New York for school, and then after I graduated, I did the whole finance Wall Street thing, like
Terrence, yeah.
So I did that for 3 years, and then I did enjoy it very much, and I thought that I would do it for a few years, but I don't think I would have ever done it for my whole life as a career. Just something that, it's just one of those things. You're young, you just graduated, it's like the hot industry, and then you go and do it because you want to prove yourself or you just want to have fun, right?
So this was like the hardcore iBanking, like 18-hour days.
Yeah.
cry at your
So
desk
this
on
was
weekends and all.
IBD. I was in a financial institutions group.
And this
I
was
did
2000 and...
This was 2005 to 2008.
So somewhat during when things started.
So this was
shit
right.
hit the
This
fan.
was right after the tech boom. Tech boom exploded in 2000. So it was very dry after that. Then about 2004, 2005, the industry started to pick up again. So I caught that rising wave. And then that time from 2005 to 2008 was the big leverage buyout boom because debt was very cheap. So there were a lot of like M&A deals, like leverage buyout deals. And then in 2008, like Bear Stearns
Collapsed.
liquidated and then everything blew up.
Yeah.
So for me, that was kind of like an opportunity for me to try something else because I had always wanted to, I was always more inclined towards like arts, creative
Oh,
stuff.
so you were like from young.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean you weren't laid off from your finance job? That's why you had to go and do
No.
arts?
No.
No. I'm
But-
just kidding.
but-
I'm kidding.
but-
That's what a lot of people assume.
But
Well, look, if you should watch it, look at Yao's face right now.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
about
he's
to throw
like,
the coffee
fuck
in Terrence's
you.
face, like,
But-
ask me to come on
but-
your podcast. Fucking just
spring on this like
Hey, everyone, just let for everyone who's listening, we always ask our guests what do they not want to talk about before the podcast.
Yeah.
We don't like do this without their consent or anything.
Yeah, and
So-
that was not something that Yao mentioned.
yeah, it was not something. So yeah.
So it's
no,
fair
it's
game.
fine. It's fine. No, but at that point in time, the opportunity cost was very low, right? Because like even if you stayed on, like the bonuses were bad, and then there were no deals to work on. So I figured like this is the right opportunity for me to go and try something else, right? I would try to work in film, which is something I always had thought about, but never really made the effort to do, right? I mean, part of it was also because like as a Singaporean, you're a foreigner in the US,
Yep.
and then like you need your visa,
Correct.
and then film companies they don't provide visa. So
Oh,
it's
is
not-
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's also a very practical thing, lah.
Yeah.
So after that, I decided to switch, lah. Then I spent about 3 months in Hawaii at a VC firm. It was actually an excuse to go surfing.
Yeah.
So I spent 3 months in Hawaii, and then after that I made the switch. So I moved to Beijing after that.
But you said you were interested in media since young. But did you actively create stuff? Did you
No, I was interested in like film.
Okay, film.
Yeah.
Okay, but did you make your
But
own
I
film?
didn't
Did you
make my
try
own film
writing?
because you may recall, right? Like we are from the same generation. Back then, there was no digital phone, there was no digital camera, so it was a lot. It was a lot harder to create stuff than it is
yeah.
to today.
But did you take part in like stage plays or drama or theater or anything?
Some I was always did a lot of creative writing.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, but where was that writing for stage plays or just for your
Just
own
for
journal?
just for my own entertainment.
Okay. Okay, so then when you went to Hawaii for 3 months, which sounds fucking awesome, what the VC was based there, is it?
Yeah.
Don't you know there's a lot of startup activity in Hawaii?
Yeah, there's a
lot,
lot.
bro.
There's a lot of renewable energy tech stuff because the government was.
Sorry, I meant it as a joke, but then he's totally serious.
I'm totally serious.
Really?
I'm dead serious because back then, like the state government was giving a lot
Yeah.
of like subsidies.
But I'm sure when you tell people, I was working at a VC in Hawaii for 3 months, they'll be like, sure. Yeah.
No, I
Really
mean,
work,
I
really work.
no, dude,
Work.
I was there to serve. I was there to serve. Like getting a job there was just an excuse for me to get housing and get paid. Then I was out surfing at 6, 7 in the morning. It was the only time I ever woke up before the sunrise consistently on my own accord without having someone to force me to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the waves are really beautiful.
But had you already surfed or you just thought, I'm in Hawaii, fuck it, I'm going to surf?
No, I applied for a job there because I wanted to learn how to surf.
learn how to
But
surf.
what about you made you want to learn to surf?
Oh, it's just one of those things that I wanted to do.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can walk on the beach in slow motion carrying your surfboard.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
That joke just died.
I could tell from the silence. Fucking
No,
hell.
but actually, just rewind a little bit lah. So you were mentioning that actually it's hard to get a visa and everything lah. So didn't the practical side of you just say, fuck it, just stay in finance for a bit longer? Then maybe I can. Even finance, you can still invest in movies. You can do all that kind of stuff.
Or right
How
on
come
the
you didn't
side,
think about
yeah.
doing that? Why do you? Because this is a question that a lot of people ask me also lah, and I have my way of answering it. But I also want to hear from other people who have done it lah. Like why you're practically nuking your entire existence, right? In a way, you change your job, you change country, change profession, everything. So why so drastic?
Well, I mean, different people will evaluate it differently. For me, like I wanted to be I mean, like even you talk about creative stuff, right? There's also like executive versus creative, right? So a lot of you can go and switch to like, you know, go and work at like a big corporation like Disney or whatever it is,
Yeah.
but in an executive role, right? So you are more like managing projects, but you're not actually creating, like writing scripts, like
Yeah.
directing, drawing, that kind of stuff. For me, I wanted to do like the creative stuff, you know. And then for me, it was like, yeah, you're right. You know, it's a whole change of lifestyle. It's a whole change of environment. But it's one of those things you still do. You know, when you're in your 20s, you have no fear of failure, right?
Correct,
you just go and you just want to do something, and you don't have this baggage about what it's like to fail, right? You just go and do it. And at that point, also, it's like the worst case scenario. You just go back to business school, and then it's like a reboot.
Yeah, correct.
But you
correct.
never thought about coming back to Singapore? Work for MediaCorp or something?
No.
No.
No, but then why China? Why China? How did it go from Hawaii to China? Yeah.
Because, well, because I'm Asian, so I'm much more interested in Asian stories. And I didn't really have that much of I mean, I enjoy watching all sorts of movies, right? But then for me, it's like, what's my value add if I stay in the US and, work in the film industry here? And then part of it, as I had also been in New York for about 8 years by then. So I was like kind of itching for a change of environment. And then around the same time, I was actually traveling. I visited China before I made the switch. And it was a very exciting place to be. You know, I had a lot of some colleagues who went there for the MBAs, who moved there for work, and it was just very fun, very very fun times. It was right after the Olympics, and there was a sort of energy, a sort of like optimism that I was no longer getting in New York. Yeah,
And your Chinese was at what level back then?
practically non-existent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like typical Singaporean Chinese, but worse.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But
you
so the AC level, AC.
AC level.
Yeah,
AC
yeah,
level.
yeah.
But then, like what you said, you put your mind to it, and then now your Chinese is like next level.
Well, because I work in the film industry, right, which is considered like cultural industry, right?
Yeah,
So if I go down there, I'm ethnically Chinese, but I cannot speak Chinese properly. Like first of all, like people kind of keep making fun of you, right? Secondly, it's also sort of like if it's like you work in the music industry, but you're tone deaf. Right? Like you need to be able to read scripts, you need to be able to participate in meetings, in discussions, right? I mean, it's just basic literacy in the language in the environment that you are working in, right? In addition to that, like because you work in the cultural stuff, your understanding of that culture needs to be even better. I mean, ideally, it should be better than the average person.
Yeah.
You know, if not, your position will always be like that foreigner, right?
Correct.
There are a lot of people like American Chinese or Canadian Chinese or Australian Chinese. They also can find work in China, but you'll always be known as like the foreigner. You'll not be treated as like a local. You know, and with a place like with everywhere, you really need. There's advantages and disadvantages of being perceived as a foreigner versus a local. So this very much feeds into that.
So it was one trip to China. Then you decided, okay, you're gonna go there, and I mean, like just the story of how you went there, and then you ended up working with people like John Woo, like hand in hand with John Woo, which is fucking amazing. So when you went there, like, did you know anyone? Did you?
No, I just cold called people.
No, so just to dig into that a bit, before we go into the whole John Woo, the exciting stuff. You're like just this guy in your 20s, Singaporean, but you know a bit of Chinese. Then you just buy a ticket to go to China and housing.
No, I got a job first before.
You got a job
moved there,
first before you go.
Oh, okay.
So you were
okay.
doing interviews and all these things.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see.
But do you need a visa to live in China or anything?
Back then, it was still quite
Wild
lax.
West. Wild West.
Now it's tightened up a lot.
Even for Singaporean Chinese.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what job did you get?
I started working with John.
Oh, that was your first job?
Yeah, that was my first job.
So, like, but you apply, I assume for those kind of jobs, did you have any professional filmmaking experience or?
No.
So then what was that? What was that job?
So, sorry, I don't know.
Because when you apply, I assume that if you want to work in the film industry, the first thing would be, okay, what have you done? But if you have no experience.
Oh yeah, so I positioned myself as a corporate finance banker type.
Oh.
I started working off with under as producer because I said that I don't have any film experience, but I do have a lot of corporate experience. I can deal with contracts, cash flows, structures, all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of people always ask me that same question, right? Like, but I think it's people also kind of forget that the film industry is an industry, right? So the creative is only like 25% of the whole picture. You have marketing, you have the financing, you have the distribution, right?
Yeah.
And so like my strength was in dealing with contracts and finance. So that was how I positioned myself to get in.
And how did you catch wind of that opportunity in the first place? Because were you like following, okay, like did you always want to work with John Woo, or was the producer someone you have been following, or?
So basically ask me how I got my job, is it?
Yeah.
So I was reading the news, and then I read like John was like trying to do more work in China. So I literally just cold called his office, and I wrote a letter to the producer saying like, I know you guys are trying to build up your business. I want to come and work in China. Here's my resume.
I see a lot of parallels between all three of us lah. Basically, like, when you wanted to jump to Scoot as well, you also just cold emailed as well. He also just cold emailed to get a job in China. I also just literally left a comment on a
Blog,
post,
right? Yeah.
to get into the industry. So I mean, if anything, a lot of times it just shows you just need to, take the first big step, even though it seems ridiculous and all that.
Yeah.
And you don't know where 10 years later you end up.
At the most, you just get rejected. Right?
Yeah. So now
Or
the
you just
equivalent is
come.
what? Comment on TikTok, retweet. But Twitter, for example,
Twitter,
it can
That
really
is a
open
good
a lot of doors. Even Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, TikTok to a certain extent, who knows?
Yeah.
The main thing is if you reach out, you never know, right?
Yeah. So I mean I think the interesting thing about all this is that Alex was doing it devoid of the Mr. Yao.
Mr.
was doing it.
Yao.
Shit, I keep like
Yao.
calling you nicknames that I can't. I come
Mr.
out with
Yao.
it. Mr. Yao.
Mr. Yao.
Did it
Yeah,
devoid.
Yao is fine. Mr.
Yao.
Yao, when you say it, sounds very sarcastic.
Mr. Yao. No, but Mr. Yao did this with devoid of the language, devoid of like context, devoid of any context of the country that he was going to move to. That's what I think is pretty crazy lah. Like for me, like I was coming back to Singapore lah, so it was a bit. At least one aspect of it was a bit more. I know what I'm getting into. And then for you,
Same. Even when I jumped from corporate to media,
yeah.
it was in Singapore. There was a certain level of familiarity. So was John Woo one of your favorite film directors?
Yeah.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
So what was what was it like? Like part of that job getting process, the interviews and all. You interviewed with him, or it was just his producers
So it's quite a funny story because like I met up with with the producer
in China,
in Hong Kong actually.
in Hong Kong? Okay.
So because they were in Hong Kong for some film festival or some film award or something. So I flew down there. I flew over to meet him. So I met the producer in the morning, and then I had my meeting with him. And then he's like, "What are you doing in the afternoon?" And I was like, "No plans." And he said, "Okay, come with me. We go and meet John." Right? So I was like, "Okay, sure." So we went to it was at the Grand Hyatt in Wan Chai.
Yeah.
So we went down, and then John was sitting in the lobby holding court like a gangster boss. He was sitting on the couch, surrounded by producers and like some other people talking to him. And then so I sat at the furthest end of the sofa.
Yeah.
Looking like an idiot in my suit and tie, and then next to the producer. So after John finished his meeting, everyone left. Then the producer walks up to him, then whispers into his ear, then points in my direction. Then John looks at me, then whispers something to the producer. Then after that was that. Then the producer comes back to me and says like, "Okay, John says you're hired."
What? And by that point, John already was like a fucking well-known director, right?
Yeah, I mean he was Hollywood.
Before we were born, he was
He was really
deal.
big deal.
Yeah. So after John waves me over, then so I scoot over to him, and he's got a very bass voice, right? It sounds very gravelly, like a Yakuza boss, and he looks at me in Cantonese, and he's like, so what's your name? And I was like, oh, my name is Yao Li Shan.
So you're speaking Cantonese as
I
well?
was speaking barely passable. I mean, I can understand it. I can barely speak it.
Okay.
So he said like, so what's your name? Then I was like, oh, my name is Yao Li Shan. You like movies, huh? Then I was like, yeah. Good. Welcome. And then that was that.
That's it.
He never asked you to
That was
like,
my first meeting with him.
never asked you to like kiss a ring or something like that to join the clan.
He never test you like about his movies or anything.
That came later.
Comes later.
That came
Yeah,
later
yeah.
when we started working.
So okay, so that was the first meeting. But then was what, like, okay, now you're going to be living in China, living in Hong Kong, or
Yeah, so but at that point in time, he was based in China because he was they just wrapped Red Cliff, and I think moving on to the next project. So then I moved to China, and then so then I just relocated to start work with him.
so he had a company, like a production.
Actually, pause. Do your listeners mostly millennials, right? I'm very scared they don't even know who John Woo is.
No, don't worry.
Yeah, no, and we can keep this in because that's a valid question. So to those of you
No,
listening,
because in China, like some
Yeah.
of the millennials, they really don't know.
I think
No,
okay,
yeah.
I think okay, if you're listening to this and you don't know John Woo, maybe just
Shame on you.
Yeah, shame on you. First of all, shame on you. And then once you feel the shame, you just Google John Woo and even go to his Wikipedia entry and look at his filmography,
Yeah.
Because he's done a lot of Mandarin movies, Cantonese.
If you watch Mission Impossible 7 or 8, just remember Mission Impossible 2 was by John Woo.
Yeah. And stuff like Face Off.
Yeah.
What other big
He
more
basically
Hollywood movies?
reinvented like the whole Hong Kong gangster film and action film genre in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
All the, very ultra violent, like action, very poetic,
Yeah.
hyper kinetic action sequences.
Yeah.
That was all of his
And
design.
it became a brand lah. Like when there was a movie coming out, it's almost like a John Woo film.
Yeah.
As opposed to a movie starring Nicolas Cage or John Woo. It was a John Woo film.
So he went off to Hollywood after that. Then he did, as you said, Mission Impossible 2 with
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, and then did Face Off. And
Yeah.
then did all
So
these
if
big
you don't know
action
John Woo,
films.
again, shame on you. Okay, shame.
No, but I mean, I think Alex was just very worried that people don't know John Woo. But I think the whole point is to also give people a bit of a primer about who John Woo is and everything lah. So I think I mean, don't worry. Like our
It'll be
audience,
fine, it'll be fine.
They do their research as well.
Okay.
lah.
Yeah. So he was how old at the time?
I think it was in the 60s, maybe.
So how big was his team? Like you were brought on, and then like what? The next day was like next week rolling already.
okay,
You
so
never, I mean, you on the spot, you never, hey John, how about my CPF and contribution and everything?
Yeah, that's
How
why.
will you?
What's my 5-year? What's the future planning? Is it
Annual wage supplement.
annual wage supplement? Is it? Is
You
there
never
skills
discuss all
future?
this.
yeah, so
is
I
there a
had to,
skills
I had
future
to, I
grant
had
for
to, I
personal?
had to unlearn a lot of stuff that I learned in the banks.
Yeah. So what happened the next few days? Because like what you said.
So he went off to do his thing. Then I went home, and then I
You didn't ask about salary or anything?
he doesn't care about that kind
Oh,
of
it's the
stuff.
producer, that one you discussed with the producer
deal
lah.
with that stuff,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it was a his company had an arm in China, or it was an entirely new setup in China.
It was a production office.
Okay,
Very
production office.
small. It was very small. So back then they just had, because it works on a skeleton team, right?
Yeah.
So producer, director, one development associate, and then when you need to start shooting, then you hire all the crew.
Yeah.
So they needed more development associates. So I was the second person they hired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, it's an interesting nugget also. I think the first place I met Yao was also at Grand Hyatt Hotel in the cafe in the lobby. I think it was a meeting that my Singapore company and his production company was having. Then I just went in there also wearing a suit and tie and everything.
Then was Yao sitting on a throne with a gravelly
No,
voice?
he was
or
just sitting next to the producer whose name was Terrence as well, right?
Yeah.
not? Oh, that's the guy who you started talking to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I saw this guy. Hey, this guy looks like, for Hong Kong guy, he looks very Singaporean, in a way.
Oh, you could sniff out
I
the
could sniff
Singaporean.
out the Singaporeanness in him. Then got carry notebook and that kind of thing. Very wow, a good
Very
student.
nerdy.
Very good student kind of. But then he wasn't wearing a
This
suit.
is what I was telling you. You have to unlearn all the stuff you learned in the banks. Huh?
No,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
could
yeah.
you sniff out the Singaporeanness in Terrence?
It was a Singapore company.
Yeah, okay.
But then I was like,
That's true.
What the fuck? This guy, like, he speaks English pretty well also and everything. I was like, what the fuck is he doing here in Hong Kong? Because the Grand Hyatt is right next to where the Hong Kong film market was. And the cool thing is that all the celebrities and directors and all that who have meetings at
Would be
they
a Grand
do it
Hyatt.
at the Grand Hyatt. So I literally saw Donnie Yen walk in a tracksuit and then was like talking to Peter Chan in the Grand Hyatt cafe lah. So it's a little bit of like film history also, that place lah.
So you met Alex after that you went up to him and said Yao.
See,
Fuck, you rubbed off on me already. Yao, you met Yao, and then after that was like, hey, you started saying the pledge a bit, and then he joined in or something, is it?
No, I think after that we had to correspond a bit, follow up. Then I was
Because
like,
the boss will always, I'll have my guys contact your guys.
So I was like, hey dude,
You are with the guys lah.
Well, so we were the guys
Yeah,
lah.
with the guys. I said, hey dude, you Singaporean, that kind of thing. Okay, then after that, subsequently a few more times that I went to Beijing, I would make it a point to just give him catch up with him lah over coffee or something. Just find out what the hell is this guy doing here.
So you like when you started working with John Woo's production company, what was the first film that you guys started filming? Because the process I assume is the same like what you said. Like there's a story, you develop it, you get you fundraise, you get investors in, you get blah blah, and then it moves into production. So how long did it take before you were on set?
Oh, it took a while.
Oh, it took a while.
No, and were you based in China? I thought your that production company had an office in LA as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So
But LA is a Hollywood project. And China is Chinese project.
Also, you just went straight to China, like
Yeah.
you didn't go to LA
Yeah.
or anything. Okay.
Because back then was China was getting really, really hot.
Yeah.
So everyone was like moving into China.
I see. So you were doing the spreadsheet stuff lah.
No,
Initially.
so it was so at first I was basically doing all the grunt work lah, right? Just dealing with so part of what for your listeners, right? Part of what how a lot of people start in the business is that once you become a development executive, it's one of the lowest positions, entry level. So what you do is you read a lot of scripts.
Yeah.
So because the agents will send the scripts to the talent, and then talent's not going to read everything himself. So then they need someone to provide all the coverage to read like the stacks of scripts that come in every day.
Yeah.
So that was my job now, right?
Oh.
So I read a lot of coverage and then wrote reports. And then he was working on his own script at the time. So I helped him do a lot of research.
This is John Woo.
John was
okay.
preparing Flying Tigers at that point in time.
Yeah.
So because the Flying Tigers is a story about all these American mercenaries in World War II who were helping the Chinese fight the Japanese, so American pilots. So a lot of there's a lot of Chinese historical sources, but there's also a lot of English language historical sources. So I had to read a lot of the English stuff too, and then write sort of like summary reports for him to a story.
Oh, that's perfect. You
So-
read the English.
Yeah,
English stuff is
so
like-
then he was like, why don't you just help me kind of summarize it into a scene? So I started writing all these like very small scenes for him. But because there was a lot of oral histories, so I read all these oral histories and then I pick out the best parts and then just sort of summarize it. So in that sense, I was really kind of like being trained, to kind of like write.
Find the meat of a story
Yeah.
or something.
So that was in addition to all the other stuff that I had to do for the producer. So that was how I ended up kind of like slowly getting involved in the creative.
Was it
creative
like
side.
a dream come true doing that? And like every morning when you walk to work, were you like skipping in your step? And all
It
that?
was kind of stressful also because at the time my Chinese was not that good, and I was also, in addition to getting English scripts, I was also getting a lot of Chinese scripts. Yeah, so I had to. That was when I really had to start kind of spending a lot of time improving my.
And you
Chinese.
learned that on your own, or you just like as when you don't know a word, you look it up, or you took courses or something?
Yeah, so I would go through the script, underline every single word I don't know, and then go and check the dictionary, and then write the character
I
over and
see.
again. Basically, like learning Chinese in school, but I was doing it in my.
So Singapore
in my-
trained you well.
I was doing that in my 20s lah.
Lee Kuan Yew will be very proud.
Yeah, Lee
Lee
Kuan
Kuan Yew himself was taking Chinese lessons, tuition lessons in his 50s or 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
But just let's go back into that phase lah. So you were living alone in China, lah, right? And you were staying in your own bachelor pad or something. Was it like what kind of existence was it? Is it like like every day you're partying hard and then you go and work and then you get killed at the end of the workday, you go and drink with your friends or
Or
what
the
kind of existence?
celebrities and like mingling in the...
you know.
Those were really fun days, man.
No, so is that the reality of the film industry in China and people who work there? and
Well,
all
I
that?
mean, that's the reality of a 20-something young person in a big city in China. Those were really fun days. China was really booming. I was out like 3 times a week. And then a lot of people from a lot of ethnically Chinese people from all over the world.
Yeah.
A lot of like American Chinese, Canadian Chinese, people from Hong Kong, all in China. So I was out like almost every night.
And this is which part of China again?
Beijing.
Beijing, okay. I see.
And then because it was booming, that was right after the Olympics, so the economy was out of control, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of new restaurants opened up, a lot of clubs, a lot of bars,
Hai Di
a
Lao,
lot
Hai
of
Di Lao.
cultural events.
Well, I think Terrence was expecting more like, I used to work every day, come back to a lonely apartment, but just think about the dream of
No,
making a film.
none of that at all. Because just so happened in my job at that point in time required me to go to China quite a lot. So actually, you do remember we met quite a number of times. Even within a year, maybe like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And just like the scene there was like, it felt like when I went to Berlin for backpacking, that kind of thing, where the club, this is a new club, you go and check it out, and then there's this underground place, go and check it out. There's this like hidden cocktail bar, go and check it out. So actually, it was like what he says, like, it wasn't as regulated. Probably it wasn't a lot of new things coming out. So it was actually there was
vibrant,
this energy in the
very
air, like,
vibrant.
It was really fun, but it was also really chill.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to have like dress code. People are not like letting you in depending on whether you got bottle service, dropping like $200 for a bottle, at the fancy clubs. It's not, that was a very New York thing, but in China at the time it was much more chill. It was like Darren said, it was more like Berlin back in the early 2000s.
No, and even the industry itself was a ragtag. I mean, there was a lot of like people who I used to sell textiles and now I'm a film producer.
Yeah.
So you walk into these meetings like, what the hell is this person like?
I mean, there's good and bad sides to that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that it was just so crazy, lah.
I mean, it was the in industry almost. People were flocking to it.
I mean, China itself was just it was the in country, right? So not just film, but like,
But 2009 already, there was a lot of attention in film. Like from the inside, I can imagine, people in the industry, they can sense the potential of China. But from the outside, like for me, I only learn about China from talking to people like Terrence, like what the world was in China from talking to people like Terrence and other people who had been to China. But to me, it just felt like, okay, it's a different world. Is it the most exciting? At that point in time, I didn't get that feeling.
So actually for the film industry, the 2 films which changed it was John Woo's Red Cliff and Ang Lee's Last Caution. Because Red Cliff was the first Hollywood style film they filmed in China. They filmed it in 2007, right? So he brought in a whole Hollywood team and he brought in all these A-list actors from Hong Kong, right? So they had the whole like AD, DP, all the crew was a Hollywood crew. And it made it was a huge box office success at the time, right? So all the Hollywood producers stood up to take note, right? Wow, there's so much money to be made in China, right? Then I think shortly after that, Ang Lee made Last Caution, and then he won like a whole lot of awards with that, right? And so that made people see like, wow, it's not just a commercial box office, but then the quality can also be very high. You can also get the both commercial and the critical thing. So that after that, the floodgates really opened. Then in 2010 onwards, it was just out of control.
You were based there what year onwards?
I was there 2009 onwards.
2009 onwards.
Well, not bad. You really like, you coasted, I mean, you rode the wave, so to speak, of the high leverage buyout times. Then after that, you went to China and then rode that wave of like the crazy.
It's like as the Wall
film
Street
industry
ship was sinking, you're like, fuck this.
You're surfing, you're surfing
you
on
surfed
that wave.
onto the China ship.
I mean, it sounds like that like now in retrospect, but I can tell you like back then I had no idea what I was doing.
So just now you mentioned that it took a while till you were on set. So I mean, for those of you listening, I think we've spoken about it briefly. To make a TV show, a film, it always takes time. Some can take 5 years, some can take a year from the time the idea is conceptualized to the time the movie is released. La. So you just mentioned just now it took a while before you were on set.
So okay, for what you mentioned is true in general.
Yeah.
Then because a lot of times like you're dealing with the script, and then you're dealing with the talent, and then a lot of times, especially in China, it's like that you want the talent and they're willing to do it, but then they don't have schedule because they're so far booked in advance. Right. So we have the schedule, and then we have the story, and then John keeps revising the story, and then this is uniquely China, which is that you have to get it approved by SAFT, which is basically the board of censorship. Right. So censorship will give comments, and then you have to make changes, and then you go back and forth. Then when you make changes, then the story changes, then the actor have an input, then the producer, then the production company has an input. So it's like this whole circle, never ending circle of back and forth, right? And then finally, when all the pieces fall together, then you have something good to go. Then once it's good to go, then then it's a whole different problem altogether, right? Then you get your financing in place. Then in China, as Terence mentioned just now, there are a lot of producers with money, and then the thing is that, but the downside is that a lot of these people are also not necessarily very professional, right? They come from real estate companies, they have a lot of money, they want to invest in film. But then when it comes to, they promise you like, okay, the financing will be in place, but then it's not in place. But then you have to pay the actor's deposit. If you don't pay the deposit by a certain date, then his schedule is free. He's going to go and join another production. So there's a lot of moving pieces, to actually get something to fruition. And especially with the film, like for John's films, right? Like his stuff is all big budget with like 10 A-list celebrities in his cast, right? So, even for our Amazing Showman, it's just a small production with like a few leads. Even then already it was, very stressful. So imagine like on his level, with like shooting schedule of like 6 months to 8 months, and like, 10 A-list celebrities and 20 like supporting actors who are all A-listers in their own right, and then because that film, The Crossing, was also about the Chinese Civil War, so it's also a very sort of sensitive topic. So we had to go back and forth with.
So that was the first movie that came to fruition when you were started working.
So it took me like a good 5 years from holding the script for the first time to seeing it finally released and doing the whole like publicity tour in the cinema.
5 years. So in the first 5 years, there was no film that went to production, started filming.
No, because that was the film that he was trying to get made.
He wrote it, is it?
It was written by Wang Huiling, who was a very famous screenwriter. She wrote a bunch of Ang Lee stuff. It was written by that. But it's actually based off a true story, right? So there's a lot of historical sources. So Wang Huiling wrote the story, and then he made some changes, and then he hired like a few different writers to tweak it to get it to the point where he was satisfied with it.
So in those 5 years, what was he up to?
I mean, if you think about it, right, the shooting schedule itself is almost 1 year. The shooting schedule was 8 months.
8 months,
right? Shooting schedule was 8 months.
What you mean 8 months of shooting?
Just shooting itself, just shooting, excluding pre-production,
Yeah,
excluding
yeah,
post-production.
Yeah.
Right, then post-production itself is almost like 1 year.
Yeah.
Then because we released the film in 2 parts, so we just had editing, and then plus we also had to do the whole publicity. So we were flying to Hong Kong, to Moscow. We were even in Moscow. We were in Tokyo. We were in Seoul.
So the whole life cycle, you went.
Yeah, so I was in the whole life cycle from just holding a very early draft of the script until we get the final draft, until shooting, until
5 years.
And then some of my colleagues who were there with me in the beginning left the project, and then by the time I finished that film, they had shot three other movies.
Yeah.
But I will say that in that 5 years, right, what I learned on set, right, it's like some people who work for like the whole life in the movie industry, they would not have touched any other stuff.
No, he showed me videos of stuff that they do on set. I think you have more combat experience than some of our generals in the SAF have.
Really? Yeah.
Just from the armies of people that you all have to coordinate. And then they use the pyrotechnics. It's like fucking a war zone like that.
So I mean, this was a huge budget movie, like what you said, right?
I mean, it was very huge by Chinese standards.
But by Chinese
not
standards.
by Hollywood standards.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the whole. This is just ties in with everything, cost of labor,
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
market size,
exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was one of the biggest.
You showed me the videos you were wearing like almost like long four that kind, and cover your face. And then you had like they had pyrotechnics on wires like to simulate like bombs like flying across the screen.
So I guess for
intense.
comparison, like our shoot for the Amazing Showman was 5 days.
5 days.
6 days.
6 days.
6 days. Oh yeah.
6 days. So this shoot was like 8 months, you said.
Yeah.
And it's like 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
7 days a week.
7
7 days a week, about 6 days. I mean, it's literally like going into army, right? Because you're traveling around China. So they put you, they put you up, the production will book your entire hotel. Then everyone will stay in a hotel. So even though you are on set like 6 days a week, you know,
live
the 7th day, because I'm the actor's assistant, right? It's the 7th day, like everyone's resting. John wants to talk about how to shoot the next week. Then the key crew will have to go for another production meeting. And then in China, there's no such thing as OT, right? Like you're basically in the middle of nowhere in the desert, and then there's only like one hotel down there. Where are you gonna go?
But was that 8 month like one of the most amazing experiences?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so like I mean, like I remember like there was one day we were just blowing up stuff, right? So we were we spent about a month in this desert in Hebei, which is a couple, maybe 150 kilometers outside of Beijing, and it's actually a People's Liberation Army firing range for the artillery units, right? So there's a lot of like trucks, and there's a desert where they just blow stuff up, right? It's a live firing range. So they rented to us for like 3 weeks to go and shoot the whole army scene. So they brought in like about a couple hundred soldiers from a military unit, and the commanders were all there, right? So we had the army there. Then we had stuntmen, and then we had our special effects department, visual effects department, right? So special effects, they do explosions, right? So the special effects people, they work with the PLA. The People's Liberation Army has a studio called Ba Yi Chang, which is the 1st of August studio, which does propaganda films for the Chinese army. Because Chinese People's Liberation Army was founded on 1st of August, right? So they have all the explosive stuff, right? So they would discuss. So each production meeting we would discuss like, okay, this scene, we have the storyboard. Then John would say like, I want this scene, like, you know, the whole army is like, you know, attacking this particular location. Then in the background, I want these explosions. In the front, I want the tanks to be attacking from here, right? So then we will sit down with the special effects guy, and the special effects guy, okay, like the back, we'll put these bombs. Then we use gasoline bombs in the back. All right. Then the Hollywood guy is like, oh, why don't you put naphthalene? You know, naphthalene is the mothballs, right? So it's the naphthalene component, right, is what gives the explosion the very vibrant orangey red hue.
Is it like napalm?
I don't think it's napalm.
Try and smart out there. Try and
I
sound
said
smart.
NAP something. I was like, oh, okay.
It's
Let me try.
it's naphthalene.
Nice try, Terrence.
Yeah.
Nice try.
So then they will set up the gasoline bombs in the back.
Yeah.
Right? So it looks very nice.
Yeah.
But in reality, like when tanks fire, it doesn't. The explosion is not so colorful. Right? So actually, if you watch like all these Hollywood films, right, like Michael Bay stuff, right, all that stuff is very.
It's fake.
It's very fake because it just looks nice, right?
Yeah.
Then in the front they use the dirt bombs where you have the actors, right? So then we have to code in the AD side will have like 3 or 4 cameras, and then one on the crane, then one aerial shot.
Yeah.
And then, so we have to coordinate all of this stuff, right? Then a lot of times it's just managing people.
So all these meetings are done in English, lah.
Yeah, you think?
I don't know, but if the Hollywood SFX, are you like the middle person?
I'm there in the meetings also. What? So John won't attend these meetings.
Yeah,
John
correct.
John will tell the AD what he wants.
AD, the
then the AD will have
director,
to the number one AD, first AD.
Yeah.
Then they'll go for the meetings and then discuss.
So that means
he's got like a very experienced like American VFX guy. So the American VFX guy was an Academy Award nominee for his work on the True Lies. So he worked with James Cameron on a bunch of stuff. So very, very experienced. So he had a lot of suggestions on how to make stuff look good, you see.
Yeah.
So because a lot of times you want to shoot stuff live because people think that VFX is a catch-all solution, but actually like honestly, right, you want to have good VFX, costs a lot of money
Yeah.
to have really good VFX. So
Yeah.
shitty VFX is very easy.
So you do as much as you can. With
So you do much
practical.
you can have live. So a lot of the times the discussion is sort of like, okay, we will shoot everything live, but then like the AD will be like, well, the lead actor is going to be here, right? So you can't blow him up, because you blow him
Yeah.
up, then it costs a lot of money to hire a new. If you kill him, it's going to cost a lot of money to hire a new lead, right? Then you're going to.
I like how the only thing that you thought of when someone is killed on set is how much it'll cost to get a replacement. Is that the China,
That's
China,
China, that's
methodology? What the fuck?
Everything can be settled on money.
Yeah. VFX and money. Hey, but just so is there anything in your, because I mean we're also here to inspire people. Was there anything about being Singaporean that you think helped you like during this process of surviving those 8 months and everything?
Okay, so I would say that one is,
Other than speaking, being able to be bilingual, other than being bilingual, because that one is dependent on the individual, I feel.
I mean, in addition to being bilingual, I think part of it is also cultural, right? Because even though we're westernized, right, like we're still we're all Asian. So like, and a lot of times, when problems show up, it's not just stuff is not just lost in translation. Stuff is also lost in body language. So like, American guy will come in, he will sit on the table, he will talk very loudly, and then Chinese people think he's being very rude. Right, but he's not being rude, right? It's just culturally, it's just how they behave, right? And then in the meeting, like he would just tell the AD in his face, like, "Oh, this doesn't work," right? And then Chinese people will think like, "Oh, that's very rude," and
Chinese people think that that's rude if you're too direct.
if you're too direct, right?
Okay.
And then like he's not being rude. I mean, when I say he's not being rude, I'm saying that he's not trying. His intent is not to be rude. His intent is not to embarrass anyone, right?
Yeah.
He's just honestly giving his professional opinion. This is what we hired him for,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But then there's also different ways to how people, behave with each other, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the more tactful way would be to sort of like after the meeting, pull him aside, say, well, I had this suggestion, maybe we can look at it some other ways, right? So I think as Singaporean, you kind of like can straddle a little bit of both, and that sort of tactfulness, I think.
So it's a bit like you if like there's a Chinese guy meeting and someone, and he says nigger, and then the word in English, it sounds like a very offensive racial slur. You are able to like step in and say,
Yeah,
"Hey,
but
no."
I don't think Singaporeans. I mean, that's that example you brought up is a very American thing,
But
right?
it has happened before. It has happened, and Singaporeans
It's happened in the
airport.
US, right?
Yeah, like the
I
US.
don't know if I've not encountered anything like that as a Singaporean, and I've not read anything about a Singaporean getting into that sort of situation.
You never
For
got
real.
into that situation
For
before.
real, for
So-
real. You never got into that. No, how about being, I don't know, studious or careful?
Or like the army experience
The
lah.
army experience.
Yeah.
Did any of that helped you?
Oh yeah, so this is actually pretty funny because like so we were going out, we were starting that whole sequence in the army in the desert, right? So this Chinese guy from one of the, he's actually not. Oh, he's Chinese, but I think he grew up in the US or something, right? So he was like, yeah, dude, it's gonna be oh my God, it's gonna be so hot, we're gonna be in the desert. Like, I think I'm gonna just wear like, like shorts and like a t-shirt. Then I'm thinking like you're out of your freaking mind, right? So first day of shoot, right? I show up like in a long sleeve shirt. I basically show up in like my improvised like long fall, right?
Yeah.
And then with like a scarf over my head. And then all these guys looking at me like, what are you trying to do, right? You think you're an actor or something? And then by like 2 days in, right? Like I'm the person having a laugh. Because it was really hot, it was like Singapore kind of weather.
Yeah.
Then there's no cloud cover, right? Because
Yeah.
it's desert, right? So the guy is wearing like dress for the beach.
Oh, so
it's
burn
burnt.
all
So
burn.
like by the end of the first day, right, like the guy is sunburned like mad. Then by the third day in, he's peeling.
Oh,
And then you still got to
shit.
be there for 3 days.
and then
Oh,
plus the
shit.
sand and the wind.
Plus the
all
sand
that.
and the wind, and it's very dry.
Oh, it's dry lah. Okay, it's dry.
So I was like, this guy, you SAF trainer, at least you know how to take care of yourself. In this
So
kind
you
of
got to
weather.
take out camo cream and use prickly heat powder bath. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, really,
No,
ah?
I got powder
Wet
in my
tissue.
neck, and then
Powder
I
in
had
your
my
neck.
scarf. to
So at
cover
any
my
point
face.
in time, were there moments during that time where you're like, what the fuck am I doing in the middle of the desert? What the fuck am I doing?
No, actually, it was the other way around, man. It's like when you're shooting all these scenes, right? Like before we even start, they will start blowing up stuff,
Yeah.
and then they'll shout action. So I was standing down there looking at like about 1,000 people on set, and then all the explosions are going off, the debris are flying down. And I'm thinking, wow, this really beats sitting in the office updating the comms on my Excel sheet, man.
Then why don't you just go and volunteer for NDP or something? Then you have that.
You got
all the
1,000
time.
people there also on set.
Yeah, Terrence can lead lah.
I'm sure if you wanted to be executive
I
assistant,
don't think
to the NDP
they'll
organizer-
allow me to blow stuff up on the
No
padang.
fireworks lah. Then you get it's just
Fireworks is not as fun as blowing stuff up and gasoline bombs.
wow. So your role on set was that just now you mentioned you were the executive assistant to John Woo lah.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to, could you take a loud hailer and go to the 1,000 people and like, you guys shut the fuck up? I am the executive assistant here.
So there's one guy who does that.
Uh-huh.
His job title is the 执行导演, which 现场执行导演, which is the executive, like sort of like he's the on-set director, right? So it's actually these guys are actually really funny because a lot of these guys come out from the army.
Yeah.
So they're actually like former like PLA guys, and what they do is they just start screaming at people. And one of the
A bit like our former SAF generals also lah, when they do press conference, that kind of thing.
They were taking umbrage at all the 1,000 people, is it? Every day.
Sorry, carry on. I just had to. put out there.
What was I saying? Yeah, so the guy's he ex-army guy, and he so they just take a loudspeaker and they shout at all the soldiers, they shout at all the extras. And the thing is that it's not just shouting, these guys are actually really good at what they do. When they need to shout and scream, they will shout and scream, but they know how to tell jokes and make fun of their assistant directors. It's basically they're entertaining the crowd.
Kichu. Kichu.
What's Kichu?
Remember,
Hey, what? Don't give me this remember like I'm supposed to know already.
this guy
What's
is not
Kichu?
Singaporean.
Oh, the Chan Chun Sing, is it?
lah.
Oh, hey, don't fucking insult my nationality. Okay, I'm a proud Singaporean.
Yeah, then you should know the Kichu incident. Regardless.
Oh, you know the Tamil song we used to sing during Children's Day?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you know?
By year.
okay.
By the way, carry on. Sorry.
I'm drinking my coffee here while you guys go at it.
It's a very tense
bickering.
week for Chinese
Yeah,
Indian
that's right.
racial relations.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. But yeah.
But you can carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually not easy for these guys to do it because for each camera setup, it takes like 1 hour or whatever, and then there are all these like very restless extras in between set.
Yeah.
So I remember one night we were shooting at night, and so what happens is that they hire extra companies. So these companies, they specialize in getting extras onto the set, right? So so a lot of these companies are all like very very corrupt, right? So they'll be contracted to bring 100 extras, but maybe they'll only bring like 60 to 70. Right. So that night we were supposed to shoot, and the on-set director, assistant director is like, it looks like we're a lot less people than we're supposed to have. So he asked me to go to help him out. Then I was like, sure. He's like, hey, you help me go and count strength. Then I was like thinking, are you freaking kidding me? So literally I had to go and ask all these guys in army uniform to go and like fall into rows of 3. Right? And then I was shouting to them in Chinese. Now I'm thinking like, oh my God, like I had no idea when I ORD'd, right? Like all those years ago, like
You can leave the
15
SAS.
years ago, right? I'll be like in the middle of nowhere in China, like shouting at extras to fall in and number off in Chinese.
That's why I say he got more combat experience than SAF generals.
Yes, yeah.
He's gone to desert and everything.
So when all this is happening, then where is Mr. Wu?
In his command post.
So the command post. So can you walk us through what that relationship working with John Woo is? Because okay, there's 1,000 people on set, right? He's the director. What does he do?
So his job is to. So here's what is it? His job is to mostly direct the actors. So he will tell the AD how he wants the scene to play out. Then the AD will execute. So the AD's job is all execution and operations. His is just to give the direction. So while all that is happening, he's kind of like going through the script, trying to tweak some of the dialogue. Then he'll be talking to the actors in this scene, let's do it this way. And then he'll be talking to the DP, right? To how he wants to put the camera.
DP is the director of
photography.
Yeah.
Right, who's in charge of lighting the set and in charge of like the
camera work,
the 2 or 3 cameras.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what he's doing. Because first of all, like if you ask John to go and like deal with all the extras. That's not his job. And even if he tried to, like, no one would listen to him. Yeah.
So, I mean, that goes into a bit of a philosophical discussion about what is the role of a director on the set as well, right? And I mean, we've gone a lot into your history as working in China and everything, but there is also that later half of your
pinnacle of Yao's career.
pinnacle of your career, which is being in Singapore and working with us to write and direct The Amazing Showman also, right?
Exactly.
So I mean, actually, why? How come you were in Singapore? What you do in Singapore if all that China and all that jazz was so amazing?
Yeah, so I came back for Chinese New Year.
In
then-
2020.
What year was
2020.
this? 2020. Okay.
And then like there was a viral outbreak in a lab in Wuhan, and which spread around the world, and then I got stuck here. So I'm still stuck here.
Yeah.
So China's loss was our gain because that's when I was like, oh, maybe we can work with Alex finally.
Yeah. So before Chinese New Year, in China, like what were you working on?
I was doing my own stuff.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
so I had
okay.
some stuff in development, helping on some friends' projects.
Okay, so it really is like the stars aligned. You happen to be in Singapore. We got greenlit for the show. Terrence, you guys had been in touch.
Actually, in the last few years, a bit less so because I don't travel to China that much.
Yeah.
But he comes back to Singapore and I tell him, stay in China, Singapore industry, very difficult, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it was quite a long shot to imagine that we would one day be working together. But then at the same time, nobody imagined that 2020 would be erased from history as well.
So you sent him a "you up" texter, is it?
Yeah. Hey, ...
You up, Alex?
Hey,
Yao,
with
yeah.
a lot of Y's.
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah, hey, Yao, what's up, man?
So
But,
that was around which time of year?
Around June.
When we got greenlit.
Yeah, when we... No, we... Okay, so the context of... We actually pitched the story initially as a English show, a Channel 5 thing. But I think the powers that be, the higher-ups thought, actually, this would work a lot better for a Mandarin show.
Maybe for people listening who still haven't watched the show, shame on you.
Shame on you,
What is it about?
I mean, actually, Alex, what is The Amazing Showman about?
It's about a struggling actor whose mom falls ill, and in order to make her happy, he starts to edit clips of himself into his mom's favorite Channel 8 shows.
From the 80s and 90s.
From the 80s and the 90s. So it's a sort of like a homage and to the golden age of MediaCorp. Back then it was SPC, TCS, drama serials.
Correct, yeah. So what I was saying was that initially we wanted to do it as Channel 5.
Yeah.
And do all the Phua Chu Kangs, the Masters of the Sea under one roof. But then it was later flipped around and say, hey, why not do it for Channel 8? Because Channel 8 has this rich library of shows that really are worth tapping on as well.
Yeah. So when you first heard the pitch, what made you choose us over Jong Woo?
Well, clearly it was everything about the two of you. Where do I even begin?
Oh,
right?
yes,
I mean,
exactly.
And also plus this little virus that also forced him to stay in Singapore.
We'll also pay now you,
not just talented, but also incredibly good looking.
Yeah. Harish has this gravelly voice. This gravelly voice is like, your name is Yao, right?
Welcome. You like films.
And that,
like films.
that stubble, that manly stubble.
You got Indian friends. Welcome to the
You're
club.
hired.
Oh, you're hired. Yeah. No, because like there was that seed of the story which we pitched, but when you came in, you took it to another level, right? So what was like? How did you? Like what about your own story or anything helped you develop it?
But just don't need to be sucking on MOF balls.
Yeah.
Like you just... No, I mean that because last...
I think you've done enough already.
Our last podcast, someone was talking about Singaporeans suck on USA balls. So I'm just quoting that. Don't worry, I'm not saying that you suck on anyone's balls. But just saying
you just made it awkward there.
I'm just saying don't need to say that because we were very good. Because the truth is we left a lot in your hands to develop the story. I mean,
I think a lot of the ideas, the best ideas you guys really came up. I mean, the concept itself was very good, and I thought it was very interesting because that was a time when Singapore had less options, right? So you were just had Channel 5, Channel 8, then your Malay and Tamil
in the
channels.
80s and 90s.
Yeah, and then I remember like back then when like in the late 90s, I think like they brought in HBO in Singapore for the first time. It was a very big deal because that was the first like cable, like non-Singaporean channel. You know, everything else you want to watch movie, you have to go to the cinema and watch.
Yeah.
So you know, that was a very interesting time for Singapore television. There are a lot of very good content, very exciting content as well, and you know, it reminds me of, you know, my school days as well. And then even for like people who I guess don't really speak Chinese, you know, you also watch a lot of that stuff growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but today is so different, right? Because today you have all this like streaming platforms, people don't watch it as much. So I think at that era of television shows really left a very strong mark on that, you know, that Singapore culture of that generation.
And I even tell people, like, even in my travels in China, when I mention, oh, I'm from Singapore, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, last time I watched your TV series with Fan Wenfang and Fan Wong and Christopher Lee, the Return of Condor Heroes. I think at that point,
Yeah, Fan Wong is still like quite a
Recognized,
household
right?
name in
Yeah.
China. Right?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Singapore productions were being exported to China at that point as high quality stuff, you see.
I mean, part of that is also because that whole generation had a basically like a team from Hong Kong,
Correct.
that creative team from Hong Kong. So if you notice that at the time it was very like Hong Kong style in terms of what they did as well.
Yeah. But so yeah, I mean, we had Noah on the podcast before, so he talked a little bit about production and everything. But broadly speaking, how is the Singapore production experience compared to, say, the experience on The Crossing in China and everything?
Because, you know, we also went around Singapore from Woodlands to Punggol. So when we spent like whole days there, you know.
And we had Lau Hela and had the 4 people in every morning.
Exactly.
And then everyone was juggling multiple roles on set.
Correct.
Exactly.
And then the director was just sitting in the command post and everything.
Actually, I remember the director also managing the schedule and all that.
A lot.
The moment the camera comes out, then the producer's breathing down the director saying, hey, how? Are you done yet? We need to move on. No more money already, no more
You were
time
thinking
already.
like, fuck this, I miss China.
The moment the camera comes out, then the producers already ask you, can move the next shot already, you know?
But yeah,
I'm like, hey bro, like relax lah.
What are the high level differences between Singapore and China industry?
I mean, obviously it's like the budget, right? But I mean, to be fair, like your budget is always related to the market, right? So how big is your market? How much can you sell it for, right? Then you backdrive it, right? So
Yeah.
people complain like Singapore, your budget is so small. But then like the thing is that you remake a Singaporean film, but for how much money? Like, will Singaporeans go and watch it, right? And then that's the question.
Yeah.
So one, obviously we had a small budget, and then also, you know, there's also a different working style in Singapore. You know, China, there's no OT. Here in Singapore, like
OT being overtime.
yeah. You know, Singapore is like, I don't know how, like 8-10 hours. Once you exceed that, then you have to pay double or whatever.
1.5 times.
1.5
Hourly
times,
rate lah,
right?
Hourly rate, yeah. It's a bit of a quite complicated math. Right? I never understood what I understand is that it comes from the same practices in Hollywood. In Hollywood, that's how they mandate it, because Hollywood has a lot of unions and everything.
They have
so
structures in
mandated
place.
it. But over here, we don't have the unions, but we've adopted all these kind of structures also. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you know, before we started shooting, a certain producer told me that we will have 10 days of shooting. Then when the schedule came out, the shooting was like 4 plus 2 days.
Easy lah, can lah.
So 4 days for all the drama plus 2 days, 2 days for all the.
Can lah, yeah, no problem lah.
So that was the main difference.
Yeah. But how about the softer stuff like working with actors and all that?
Oh, I loved working with Chen Shu-cheng. I think that generation of actors really like first class. It was such a joy to work with him, and I also learned a lot with him. I didn't have to do much direction with him because I wrote the character in a very sort of like self-parodying way.
Yeah.
Sort of like he's this narcissist who refers to himself in the third person. So it's meant to be a very exaggerated parody of himself. And I was a bit worried, like maybe, you know, he's not willing to do it. Because it takes a certain kind of personality who's willing to, you have to be secure enough in your own in yourself to do that.
Correct,
right? And he not only did he was willing to do it, he also got all the jokes, right? Because I wrote it in very sort of like flowery Chinese language, right? So
Yeah.
it's very literary. So it was very the comedy was supposed to show this egomaniac who likes to talk about himself and uses very literary language when he talks about himself. So he got all of that,
Yeah.
and then like when he came, like if you notice, like for most of his shots, I shot in white because I don't need to cut
Yeah.
to fix any of his stuff because he performs with his whole body. So most of his scenes I just shot in white. I directed him. I basically said like, okay, we're putting the camera here. We shoot in white. Then the you just go
Do your
just
stuff.
do whatever you need to do.
So for I mean, like I know of the shows like the shows that Chen Shu-cheng was in the 80s and 90s, but to listeners who maybe do not speak Chinese, don't watch the shows, what are some things that he's the most recognizable in?
I mean, he was a very big host also on TV.
I think if people see him, they will
Didn't know
recognize.
him,
Yeah.
Every Sunday night, there's the don't know what Econ Mini Mart. There was a like the kind of game show that's
Yeah.
sponsored by.
But
by
I'm guessing
Minimart.
the younger Gen Z people who maybe don't watch Chinese, but basically he's a
Ask
legend.
them
He's
to
an
ask their
icon.
parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
a
been
legend,
acting
he's
since
an
the
icon.
80s,
Yeah.
like the Awakening.
And am I right to say that he's up there with the Zoe Tays and Fan Wongs
Yeah,
in terms
yeah,
of that
he's,
sort of
he's more
Yeah.
Lao Jiao than Fan Wong. Because Fan Wong I think came around in the late 80s,
Yeah.
early 90s.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Fan Wong I think 90s,
90s,
right? For
yeah.
him he started off in the early 80s.
And that was like the golden age of TV where if you were a
Yes.
MediaCorp actor, you were a fucking big deal. lah.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was on set, because when he came, he's what, 70?
I think he just turned 70.
Yeah, and like to see, he was so energetic, and I think he came from a previous shoot that he had been shooting, and he was so charismatic. When he was performing, I wasn't sure what he was saying, but I could feel the gravitas, the energy of his
And
voice.
he memorized all his lines. Like,
Yeah.
He didn't miss a single word. And I wrote like a lot of dialogue for him.
Yeah.
And he had no airs about him. I mean, he came and he was just saying hello to everyone, talking to everyone.
so nice.
He said bye to everyone when he left, you know.
So nice.
So it's like, I mean, that kind of work ethic, I feel, is very underrated today, you know, where
No, it's the whole professionalism. because
exactly.
because he's not just a good actor, like his
Yeah.
whole demeanor, the way he interacts with everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, like no one expects him. I mean, people always say that like, oh, the celebrity is very humble or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's like that big of a deal as long as you do your job properly.
Yeah,
Like that's the
yeah.
most important thing. But like his whole demeanor, like I see it with a lot of actually like very senior actors, even like working in China for the actors of that same Chen Shu-cheng's generation, even though they're very big stars, they come in, they're very, very low profile, they're
Yeah.
very professional.
Where's the newer people all divas? Like Noah Yap, is it? Yeah, fucking Noah Yap.
if he's listening.
No, lah,
but I do
Noah Yap
remember
is a sweetie.
Yeah, I do remember a very sweet moment when Noah first was introduced to Chen Shu-cheng. I mean, they sort of seen each other around and they know each other, all that. But Noah's like, hey, he's basically saying to him in Chinese, hey, I'm very excited to do this, but my Chinese is very bad. Then I think Chen Shu-cheng just like pulled him aside. He's like, don't worry. Whatever you need, I'll help you. You just tell me which part is easier for you. I can help you. We just do this together and we do it well, So there was no need for him to be nice and all, but he still went out of his way to make Noah feel comfortable. And Noah will admit it that his Chinese was not the best, even on set and everything. But I just saw this, and because I was doing editing, I saw the number of takes that Noah did, and Chen Shu-cheng just kept giving his 100% in every take.
And there's another thing, which is that, when we were shooting the reaction shots, like, okay, so for the audience, right, usually like we shoot in one direction, then we flip the camera and shoot the other direction to get the reactions. So a lot of big stars, right, they won't hang around for the reaction shots. So for example, like if I'm talking to Terrence right now, like the camera's on him, then after that when they want to show my reaction to laughing at his jokes, right, then they will film me laughing. Then
They just get
by
a stand-in.
right, Terrence should also be there. So
Yeah.
I can laugh, I can act off him, right? But a lot of big stars, they won't bother, especially if the co-star is
Struggling,
is a
Newbie, yeah.
is a newbie, or if they're extras. But Chen Shu-cheng was there for all of his all the reaction shots.
Yeah.
I actually sent him out I said like, oh, thanks. Now we are going to shoot the reaction shots. You can go out and rest. Then he was like, no, I should be here so they can act off me as well. And he did that not just for the scene inside the office, even for the extras in the hospital corridor. He also did that for the reaction shots as well. And he didn't have to do that.
So when you went through that whole experience, how has your thoughts about the Singapore media industry, the Singapore film industry evolved? Or you're like, fuck it, once the pandemic is over, I'm going back to China, man.
I mean, I'm not trying to be glib here, right? But I've only worked on one project here.
Yeah.
So I can't really talk about the industry as a whole.
and because the experience was so spectacular.
And my
it's
experience
Yeah,
was so
so-
because I was
yeah.
working with
Great.
such talented, professional, good-looking, charming,
Yeah, exactly.
successful people.
Yeah.
So maybe this is not representative of how.
Yeah.
You
You have to take it with a
can't-
pinch of salt.
Yeah,
Take it with a
yeah,
pinch of
yeah.
salt. Yeah.
I have to manage my expectations.
No, but overall, I mean, I'm sure when you were in China, were you keeping tabs on Singapore's industry, what was coming out of Singapore? Could you see yourself coming back to Singapore to do a film here?
The only people I keep tabs are Ministry of Funny. No one else is really worth my time.
Okay, so maybe we that one is a given lah. We know already lah. We know
know,
already,
yeah.
and we'll pay now you later.
Yeah, even though he can't get YouTube in China.
That's
China is blocked in China.
YouTube, no YouTube, no
Yeah,
Facebook.
no Instagram.
But like in general, were you keeping tabs of like Singapore? And yeah, did you see yourself coming back to Singapore, doing your own stuff in Singapore?
I mean, I keep tabs in terms of like what the movies are coming out. I mean, like I do try to. I mean, it's hard because a lot of them don't get released in China. But when I'm back, I will try to go and watch it in the cinema.
So what's the last good Singapore movie you watched?
The one I watched recently, Colin Go's what's it called? Singapore Dreaming.
Oh yeah, it's on Netflix, right?
It's on Me Watch, I think.
I think it's on Netflix also.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it on TV. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
That is cool. So like I mean like so you with this are you working on anything right now? Are you writing your own stuff? Do you have a few things in development?
I'm always
Oh, you're what?
I'm always writing.
You're always
I'm always
writing.
writing.
So what's your writing schedule like? Because for me personally, writing is one of the most painful processes of making a film
Yep.
for me lah. But for you, are you someone who's sounds like you've always been enjoyed writing? You're one of those who
I mean, I don't know if I think of it as whether I enjoy it or not. I think it's just something you have to do. You don't like to go to work, you still got to go to work, right? It's just one of those things you do. And it at least for my writing process, a lot of the time I'm just sitting around not writing. To me,
Thinking.
the writing is actually the easiest part. The hardest part is coming up with what you want to write. And I spend a lot of times thinking, going through the ideas in my head. I'll sit down with my notes, and then when the story comes out, that's actually the easy part. Yeah.
But do you have like a schedule or spending a bit of time either thinking or writing every day? Is it a regiment?
Yeah, if I'm trying to crank out a screenplay, then I work in it every day.
Every day,
Yeah.
like a set amount of time.
Yeah, if I can get I'll sit in front of at my table at about 10 or 11. Then I'll start drinking coffee, start getting wired up. Then I'll start reading the news or whatever's interesting to me at the time. Then after about 1 or 2 hours of not doing anything, then I'll start trying to brainstorm ideas. Then usually about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm kind of getting tired. Then I'll stop for the day. So if I can get one good idea a day, that's considered pretty successful.
And this
for
is
me.
like one film idea per se.
No, I mean
Or
like
just
just
one
for like
idea
a
for a
beat,
scene.
like a beat,
Oh, for a
like a
beat,
beat,
okay.
or like a emotional turning point, or like a plot point. Just like one good idea. Doesn't matter whether it's a dialogue or whatever.
So when you look back, do you kind of like what's your take on the whole going to film school, and studying? Because the common thing amongst all three of us is that we didn't go down that path. But you see some people still recommend it. But what's your take on
I
the
don't
whole
know.
thing?
I didn't go to film school, so I couldn't
Yeah.
tell people whether it's a good thing to do or not. I will say the one advantage of going to film school is that you have you have your network from the start. So if you go to film school, you meet your people who you can collaborate with.
Yeah.
It's very important to find people who you like, and it's just important to figure out who you cannot get along with, right? Especially I don't know about Singapore, but I know like in the US and in China, the film schools, they have a very good network alumni network. And then like when you come out of school, if you have like very good student projects, you can get a job straight away in like a production company or TV commercial company or whatever it is you're interested in. If you didn't go to film school, doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, it's just a different path for everyone. A lot of it depends on how hard you hustle as well. Yeah.
So, just wanted to ask you, because you essentially spent a whole decade in China, right? From 2009 to 2019, 2020. Then you came back to Singapore. So, what differences have you seen from when you left Singapore till now, that strike you as the most surprising?
Can be within and outside of the film industry.
Yeah, even politics or what also can.
For me, it's just like the cost of living. The cost of it's like Singapore is like is very developed now. So it's like first world country. Like everything is like first world prices.
Yeah.
And I think like going forward, growth is not going to be that big. Right? You're looking at like first world GDP.
But is it China also? China also like
China is still a lot
getting
of
there.
it's still very exciting.
Even
place.
the tier 1 cities, even they still have a lot of potential, or you're talking more tier 2?
Just in general, right? Like again, I'm not talking just specifically about economy, right? I'm talking in a very like anecdotal way. Like I just feel that there's a sense of excitement there because there's a lot of opportunity to do whatever it is you want to do. I mean, obviously there's also downsides, right? Like don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's like the promised land, right?
Yeah.
But it's just a big place, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that size, when you have that scale, like historically, China has been for thousands of years has been its own entity, right? And the country has been able to sustain itself. So even if you're in like a creative industry, whether you're in the visual arts or in your theater or you're in film, there's ways to survive even though you're not necessarily that successful, right? So give you an example, right? Like because even though the cost of living in Shanghai or Beijing or Shenzhen is actually very high, actually it's similar to Singapore, you can still survive there because like you can just go and live in the suburbs. Right. So like you live in like the suburbs, there are like artist communes where you're surrounded by like-minded people who are also in the creative business. So all they do is just paint, sculpt, and get drunk every day. Right. Then when you have like projects going on, when you get hired for a project, then you move into the city to with the rest of the crew. Right. So it's actually a very sustainable life, even though you're staying outside of a big city. You can there's still that place for you to if you're willing to do it, there's still opportunity for you to pursue something which is not necessarily a practical career, so to speak. Whereas in Singapore, like, your rent is your rent, right? Like it's whether you stay in Changi or Tuas, it's not going to be that much cheaper, right? And then you have all this like very strong cost of living. In China, you can always move into a second or third tier city and then move back when you have work. So a lot of it is actually very economics driven. Right. And then also in addition to that, because the market is huge as well. So the government barely gives subsidies. Right. Because the market is big enough to sustain theater, whatever it is. Right? Even visual arts. And people are proud of their own culture. Yeah. Because they say like, okay, Hollywood is Hollywood, that's great stuff. But Chinese has its own like thousands of years of Chinese their own cultural heritage, and people are rightfully proud of that, right? So it's not, if you want to pursue something in the arts, it's also not seen as like
non-essential.
Like there's something wrong with.
It's like paying
what's wrong with
homage.
you?
It's like paying homage and doing the country proud, almost.
Yeah. It's seen as
That's
legit.
so
So
interesting.
you're saying in Singapore, you feel that people don't value the cultural products as much, lah.
I'm saying in Singapore that just because of at least in the time that I've been back for the past one year, right, I can feel that there's this economic pressure, there's the cost of living, and just the size of this place is just a lot more challenging, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a very big thing for us. Like even when last time when we got to go to LA for work, lah, and also just to attend an award show and all that, just the sense of like. Is like the film industry, like entertainment industry, is an industry, and people are really treating it seriously as an industry. That itself just buoys you, it keeps you afloat and it makes you feel like, okay, there's a chance for me to do something, get discovered. In Singapore, a lot of time is like
You have to justify why the fuck you're in this industry.
you sort of you spend so much time justifying your own existence to your
Yeah.
friends, your
Yeah.
family, even yourself. There's this nagging thing in the back of your head, economic pressure, lah. That
And then,
it just eats away at you, lah.
A
Right?
lot of times also like in China and like with my American colleagues, it's like kind of like you talk about project. It's like they always ask you like, what's the project about? What's the story about? Right? They're
Yeah.
interested in the product.
Singapore-
Here it's like how much you gonna pay me?
exactly.
I don't give a damn about like what
Yeah.
the story is about. Like
What's your margins?
what's your budget?
Because I remember when we were in LA also, we were hearing these independent filmmakers, be very thankful that this not A-list star, but maybe B-list star agreed to do a cameo or something. And I was thinking, what was that conversation going to be like? Because it's an indie film. There's probably no budget. So why would this guy do it? Because in Singapore, it's I guess it's a downside to scarce resources or low budgets. I don't know. Like even I myself as an actor, if someone asks me to be a project, I do try and say, okay, what's the story about first before we talk about budget.
Yeah.
But I think in the US, what struck me was like, fuck, people come together almost primarily because of the creative, and then they try and find the commercial.
Yeah, see, so
thing
this is
about it
one
lah.
of the advantages of going to film school, right?
Yeah.
Which is that what I was talking about, stuff like this, your network. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you're young and you're sort of hungry, then you're willing to work on each other's projects for free
Yeah.
or for low budget, because ultimately it's you all want to create like stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll also say that one thing about China is that the government, they don't give subsidies, but you can argue that what they do is even better, which is that they've just blocked all foreign films from
yeah,
showing in
that's
in their market.
That
right?
is true.
So
That
effectively,
is
what you
true.
have, right? So they have, if I'm not mistaken, it's 24 foreign films a year. So
What? 24 a year?
24 a year, right? So effectively
lot.
works out to
Fucking
two.
hell.
Effectively works out to two foreign movies in
A
the theater
month,
a month.
Shit.
Right?
Everything else is local.
Everything else is local. So this is how they built up the industry, because they just basically said like no foreign films. Then that's how they built up an industry.
Yeah.
Because back when I first moved to China, like piracy was a huge thing, right? Like there were a lot of illegal DVD sales, right? So
Yeah.
the US, like Hollywood lobbyists were like kept harassing China, saying like you're not protecting the IP, yada 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 yada. But by the time 2017, 2018, like you couldn't find pirated DVDs anymore, because like no one was buying all this stuff, right? In fact, now the Chinese, now it's easier to, if you really wanted to, it's easier to find like illegal Hollywood films than it is to find illegal like Chinese films, because now that China has generated its own IP, they have their own
Enforcement and all that.
yeah, they have their own TV series, they have their own movies. It's even hard. They've really like begun to protect the intellectual property rights.
So now that you've been in Singapore for like a year-ish, and of course you were greeted by knowing that we are all non-essential to the Singapore economy. What if you had a magic wand to do something to the local industry?
No, tomorrow you CEO of IMDA.
Or SPH.
Tomorrow, SPH.
Yeah.
What would you-
Yeah, what would you do? Like what from the learnings of being in China? Because as much as China, there was a lot of potential in 2009. Sounds like it was still very like nascent, very early days for the industry, and you've seen it kind of, I don't know, get more structure, the ecosystem build up. What would you like? Yeah, Singapore, if they just tell you, Mr. Yao, please.
I honestly don't know how to solve this problem. I mean, there are ministers who are far more educated and paid far more than me.
But they
But
yeah,
just pay
yeah.
doesn't mean that they're qualified for the job.
Exactly.
Let's
Don't fall in the
clarify
Singaporean trap. Okay.
that. They were talking about ex-generals who are made in charge of
No, I mean,
industries they don't know about.
Ban all the foreign films.
Ban all the foreign films.
Ban all foreign films, cut off all the foreign go back to the 90s, then you only have all local content.
No, but 90s we had movies and all that. Foreign movies.
But
and all.
In the cinema.
It wasn't
the cinema,
accessible. And like TV, maybe Channel 5 every Friday, you're like, oh, fuck, Ghostbusters again. Yeah.
No, but so we've talked about this before, where the industry in Malaysia, literally, like they don't ban anything, but they say that a cinema in Malaysia must always have at least one Malaysian film playing at the same time. Every week must have one, regardless, mandated. So I guess there are pluses and minuses. Like it means there are limited slots, but also it means that guaranteed that you will always have a choice of watching a local film if you really wanted to support locals, so to speak. Singapore, we don't do any of that. What was the term called?
What?
when you help a disadvantaged one reach a higher level so that it can compete at the same level as affirmative action. Affirmative action that way. I mean, we don't want to ban anyone, lah, right? But I feel like there still can be little steps like this done to help make people feel like, oh, there is a choice of watching a local film, and local films are not all bad. And I only watch when Jack Neo movies come out, lah. Do you think something like that could possibly work?
I've only been back for about a year.
Yeah.
I think it's a multifaceted issue, right? Because your audience is your audience, right?
Yeah.
But then your industry is your industry, right?
Yeah.
And then and it's how they interact with each other. So you can get money from the government to keep making films, right? But then you put the film in the cinema. Like, first of all, like, are people going to watch it? Right.
Yeah.
If people are going to watch it, is the quality good? Right. You take money, you go and make some lousy film. People watch it, and then they get pissed off, right? Because they think, oh, I'm going to support. I can go and watch like Avengers. Then I'm supporting. I want to support local film, but I pay the money and the thing sucks. Right. Then like why am I supporting local film? Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's everything. Right. Then you have to train people to come up with good content. Right. And then you have to marketing, distribution, all of that stuff needs to be in place. But then, like, how do you attract new people, right? Like, then at the end of the day, you also need the market to be there, right?
Yeah.
So if you got a good market, then there's money to be made. Then obviously there will be a lot of people who will be in there just because you can make money. But if there's no money, then you can throw subsidies at it till the cows come home, and it may or may not work. I don't know, So I feel like it's a lot of like different parts of the circle.
Okay. Yeah. So just tackling one part that I think you alluded to earlier, the idea of people being proud of their cultural product, lah. Do you think Singapore, as a Singaporean Chinese and everything, lah, we should also pay more attention to Chinese cultural products, and because not only economically it can make sense for us, lah, right, in terms of like going to work in the industry there, but also just as a sense of like China is such a big power now, and Singapore, we need to,
So suck
improve
China balls,
relations. Correct, lah. Yeah,
Suck China
essentially I'm
balls.
asking.
Suck China balls.
I mean, I think Singaporeans in general are very like cosmopolitan. Like, cause just growing up here, like we read news from, we'll keep in
We
touch
watch
with like the
Friends.
politics.
Yeah.
All our media, most of the media that we consume is all Hollywood media anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as in,
So don't suck China balls?
don't.
You just
don't
need a
need-
yes or no. You suck or don't suck.
Like Singapore, do we have a place in
Yeah.
China,
Or maybe suck one or not both?
should we focus
I mean,
more?
I can't tell people what they should do. Is what I mean, I can speak as a Chinese Singaporean, right?
Correct.
Like,
I'm glad you look at me because I appreciate
because
that.
I would not dream of imposing my.
Yeah, you're not being Terrence. You're
my-
not being Terrence. Yeah, correct. Yeah, you're not being Terrence.
Part of me as a Chinese Singaporean going to China is also sort of like understanding the richness of Chinese cultural heritage. Because like Singapore, you grew up here, like we're all very westernized, right? And at least in the circles that I grew up in, it was also considered very China. People had this
The
very
word
derogatory,
China,
very
yeah.
derogatory approach to the Chinese culture, right? Part of it is also that the ruling class in Singapore has always mostly been English-speaking Peranakan, right? But having been there for such a long time, like it's actually it's awoken like that sort of like it made me realize that wow, there's this whole different universe out there, right? Like if you can speak Chinese, like it opens up like a whole different world of culture, of like opportunities, of like places to visit, of food to eat, of people, friends to make, and I think part of it also like Singapore, there's this we're also influenced a lot by the West. There's this certain like people have a certain bias towards
Made
China.
in China. Yeah.
Made in China. I would encourage everyone to go and visit now, and then form your own opinions. It's a great place, even if you're not there for work. It's a beautiful country. Things to see.
Yeah, that's something I've advocated for a long time. As a Jiak Kantang guy who doesn't speak Chinese, my visits to Beijing just made me like
Blew your mind.
It blew my mind in terms of not only the economy but also just how the kind of pride that people had in their cultural product. It's not something that I've ever seen in Singapore so much. Lah.
Because when you say China, right, it's also vast, right? You know, in the northeast, it's like snow country. You have a lot of ethnic Koreans and Manchurians.
Yeah.
Then you go to the west, it's all desert and ethnic Mongolians
fucking
and
crazy,
Kazakhs and Uyghurs. The food they eat is different. They eat a lot of lamb and barbecue. Then you come down to the south, you know, then it's like from Canton and Fujian, and then it's our ancestors. So the culture, even within there, is also
Singapore
it's also
also
very
got what?
vast.
You got Yishun. You go from Yishun to Sentosa Cove, very different. You
Yeah,
go
but
Tampines,
you go
Punggol,
to
very different
if
also.
wherever you're in Singapore, you can still get your Old Chang Kee, you can still get your bread talk and your
toast
nasi
box,
padang
toast
and
box,
your
all.
tosai and whatever it is. You know, you can get it all over.
It just costs more in certain places
Just
like
got more,
Sentosa.
yeah,
and all
correct,
that.
correct.
But do you feel the same way about
India.
India, yeah.
Because I've actually spent a decent amount of time in India. I was there for an 8-week project. There's nothing to do with film. It was about arsenic remediation after I graduated in Kolkata. Then I went around
Sorry, wait, arsenic
remediation because I was mechanical engineer by studies. Right?
Oh,
Yeah, so went there, it was cool. And I was based at a university there. I traveled a bit around, took like a 28-hour train ride that you really see India. And same thing, it blew my mind how fucking big this place is. And weirdly enough, there was also a sense of pride. I remember one time me and this other guy I was doing the internship with, we were stuck somewhere in Kolkata and we couldn't get back to the hotel. Some guy offered us a lift on his motorbike and we got a lift. And then I was like, thank you so much. You know, can we buy you a drink or something? He was like, no, you know, you are a guest in my country and I need to treat you like a guest and make sure you're safe. I was like, oh shit. I don't know if, that this is putting aside the other issues in India, like most big countries have, like sexual harassment and all that. Put it all aside. But as a country, like what you say, you can travel 2 hours and you're in a totally different place with totally different food, totally different language, totally different looking people, and it just blew my fucking mind.
So wait, where was the pride? The pride was what?
No, like just you talk to people on the street, their lives are not the easiest,
Yeah.
but there's certain, like they're almost proud that India is their country.
So it's not your pride, lah.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I
for
thought
me-
you meant your pride.
No, I didn't have the realization like, oh my god,
Oh.
I'm proud to be Indian because
Technically Indian.
I think growing up in Singapore, once you travel, then you start to look at your own self. Okay, what exactly is your ethnicity? What nationality are you? But just going there, I just found like, oh shit, maybe it's because there's so much culture, so much history. So anyone growing in India, they know that okay, their country as a whole is very influential in the world. I think Singapore, when we grew up, now probably Singapore is more in pop culture and cultural zeitgeist than ever before. But growing up, no one knows what the fuck Singapore is. So you almost grow up with this thing, okay, my country almost doesn't matter in the world. Let's suck the balls of these other countries.
back in the 90s, Singapore was famous because of the Michael Fay
Yeah,
case.
Michael Fay.
Yeah.
So you get famous for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
Right?
so when you see something like Crazy Rich Asians, do you feel like that's the direction Singapore needs to go? You know, we show ourselves as cosmopolitan, modern, bilingual, and everything on screen. Or do you think we should go more like, you know,
Art
okay,
house.
I mean, ethnically.
There's no such thing as bad publicity at all.
well,
As long as you get it out there, it's fine.
So you enjoyed Crazy Rich Asians, I suppose.
I enjoyed it, yeah.
You're talking to the chief hater.
Wouldn't say
Crazy
chief
Rich
hater lah. I just thought as a movie, it was okay lah. I know it symbolized a lot more than that, but as a movie, I was like,
You know, for us Chinese people,
shut up lah.
stop Asian hate.
Yeah, but so like right now you said you are working on some stuff, and like these are feature films, TV shows, just ideas.
Mostly movies and ideas.
So if people wanted to watch some of the other stuff you've made, because I know you've made short films and all that, right?
Yeah.
Where should they go to find it?
It's actually not for public release.
Oh, okay.
Because I put a
Password.
It's password protected.
I see.
Because the short film space, like if you release it online, then you can't submit to festivals and all that kind of stuff.
Ah, okay.
Whereas like,
But
the
if you want to
amazing-
watch, stuff that I've made, the best one I've made so far is the Amazing Showman, which is currently available on New Watch.
Yes, and the link is in the fucking show notes, man.
yeah, we're all very very proud of it. I
Yeah.
mean, we were telling Noah lah, basically also that we had been talking about working with Noah for like the longest time. Then it started in 2018. Then we did a TV show, and then it got pulled from release.
Yeah.
And then like it's taken this long for us to finally have something on the internet that is actually like something that we're all very proud of. And
I watched it with and without subtitles, and I fucking love it. And I know it's our project.
When you watch it without subtitles,
Yeah, I mean,
how did that feel?
no, it's just. I mean, of course, at the back I know the story and all, but just I'm just super proud of it, lah.
Yeah.
So kudos to you.
Kudos to you.
No,
for
thank
bringing
you
it to life.
for
Yeah.
thank you for pitching the project. It was a great
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
No, I mean, to I think like Harish said, to elevate it to a level where we talk about literature and really delve into what it means to have a relationship with
Yeah.
your mother and the cultural product of your country being part of that relationship with your family. I think that's actually quite relevant to literally
Yeah.
what we're talking about, where it used to be. I think you wrote on your Facebook post like. You don't even need to. Everyone said, I just watched a 7 o'clock show yesterday, and you
Yeah,
know that what
yeah.
show you watched, and then you probably watched it with your family, your
Yeah.
mother or father
Yeah.
watched with you, and even like my mother, she came and she's like, "Oh yeah, we used to watch the show together and everything." So I was like, I mean, quietly to myself, I was like, yeah lah, obviously this. The Amazing Showman is a story that is about ourselves, lah.
Yeah.
The story of you grow up with your parents, you watch what they watch, and you try to please them by doing something that you hope that resonates with them, lah.
And I mean, for us also it was cool because we did a Tamil pilot. Now we got a Chinese TV series. Now it's all that's
Yeah,
left
just
is
missing a
Surya.
Malay,
Surya.
Malay,
Then we
yeah.
got the full CMIO, holy quadruple superpower. Then we can become like Captain Singapore. lah.
Yeah.
Captain
So I
Singapore.
hope your listeners, if they watch it, they like it, go and write an open letter to MediaCorp, ask for a season 2.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
Open letter, share it with your friends and shit.
So, but I know you said the short films you can't be watched, but the ones that you worked on with John Woo, what's the main project?
The main one I worked on was The Crossing.
The Crossing.
Crossing Part 1 and Part 2.
Are you in cameo?
It's called Taiping Lun.
Did you cameo anywhere in there? No.
No.
But your name is in the credits,
My
ah.
name is in the credits.
Yao Li Shan.
Yao Li Shan.
So yeah, guys, stay.
I
stay on.
got two credits.
Oh, is it?
One was executive. One was assistant to director Mr. Wu.
Yeah.
And the other one was translator of Chinese subtitles to English.
So now you have John Woo's number on your phone. Just anytime you just call him. What's up, John? How's it going, John?
I probably wouldn't do that, but if I wanted to do that, I probably could.
You never see the John Woo's notes on the Amazing Showman that he sent.
Oh
back to us?
yeah, correct, yeah. And his video message. also, right?
Stop sending this to me. If not, I'm gonna block you.
Yeah, what happened to you? Why are you doing this? You did the crossing. You did the crossing.
I remember one photo I took of Alex during the shoot that really encapsulated the whole experience, because they set up the director's the command HQ in the void deck, the HDB, the stairwell.
It's not the void deck, it's the stairwell.
The stairwell, lah. And then,
stairwell.
so it was just one table and one screen. Then Alex just sat there by himself, like staring
yeah,
at that thing.
I remember that.
Then I just quickly went to take a photo because there was like nothing around him, and I was like, he went from
John
deserts
Woo's,
in Gobi,
Thousands of people.
thousands
on
of
set.
people to sitting in a stairwell in HDB.
I was like, where's my first shot going to start?
Yeah, I remember
First shot was supposed to be 1 o'clock. Now it's 2:15. I
remember
haven't had
that.
my first shot yet.
I remember that.
It's funny,
But yeah, so I mean the one way we always end our podcast is also with the One Shiok Thing.
yes,
Did anyone give you a heads up that you need a One Shiok Thing?
I think Terrence mentioned it.
yeah.
Okay,
you
do
know.
Oh,
you?
wait, he told me I'm supposed to come up with one shot thing myself.
Yeah lah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you have something or you need a bit of a?
You guys go first.
Okay, Terrence, you got your One Shiok Thing.
Yes, I do. In fact, I have a few lah, but I just need to decide on which one to talk about. So do you have yours? You can go ahead first.
I think. So, what would be? If you have a few,
Yeah.
you want to go ahead first?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
There is this very good video lah by this channel that I've been following for many years already. It's called Curse
I know.
Gazette. It's an animation channel that has a few million subscribers, but they do very interesting animated videos about philosophy, about life, about science lah. Science of black holes, science of
It's the one
everything.
with very hard to spell name lah, right?
Curse, I don't know what I know it means something in some language, but basically one of the recent videos they did I felt was very timely and very touching is called The Tail End, basically. And it's not a concept that's new, it's just that when they do it as an animation, it's much easier to comprehend. So is the concept of they break down your life into the number of weeks that you live based on, assuming your average lifespan is 80 or whatever it is in your country. And then they show you, okay, this is how much time that you will spend with your parents. And then assuming that every weekend or maybe once a year you see your parents for like 3 weeks, during the holidays or something. So this is the amount of time, blah, blah. So they help you break down, and then they just explain it during the video. Once you've left the house, right, you've already spent more than 90% of the lifetime time that you will spend with your parents. So the moment you move out of your house already, that's in fact, once you're out of your childhood, basically, you're only left with 10% of the lifetime time that you will spend with your parents. So what they're saying is that when you start to look at life in this way, then you realize that actually a lot of things that we say that we put off that we don't want to do until later. Like I'll spend more time with my parents when I'm, my career is fine. I'll visit this place again when, my work is less busy. Then actually we have very, very little. We're already at the tail end of that time that we have with people and all that. So every instance you have to meet a friend or that could be the last time or the tail end of the amount of time you actually spend with them, university friends and secondary school friends. So they made this video, because we're coming to we're at the tail end of the pandemic also, right? Where we hope, where we've basically been away from people for so long, and they just wanted to also just make this to remind people that if there's any time to do something you want to do, whether it's pick up a new hobby, do your career change, go and see your parents, go and meet up your friends, all that, you are at the tail end of your time to do that already.
Did they say whether they collaborated with the Wait But Why guy? Tim Urban?
They mentioned that they sourced it from there.
Yeah.
So they said that they loved his blog and everything and all that. So,
great, man.
But to put it as an animation was just damn shook. I mean, that you really...
Because the concept really is quite powerful. It's really quite powerful.
And when you see it as a visual... So Curse gets... I mean, I can't remember how to pronounce it. I usually watch it because they talk about science of black holes and everything. So I love all that scientific stuff. But this one I felt was like...
touching.
Yeah, and I want people to watch it because especially at this point when we are moving out of Patuha, and then we need to prioritize what we do again and what we're going to do with our time.
I mean, I'm glad you brought up a YouTube channel because it made me remember what I had shortlisted for my One Shiok Thing. It's this YouTube channel called Joma Tech. It is basically this guy who is a full-time computer programmer, but while working as a programmer at Facebook, he just started a YouTube channel that kind of poked fun at what it means to be a programmer, like just short 1-minute comedy skits, and it's fucking great he's kind of a geek, and he recently moved to New York and he started a YouTube channel detailing his life in New York, and now he started a newsletter and he's starting a game show. So to me, here's a guy who's got a full-time job and he's very open about it. He earns $250,000 a year as a computer programmer, and he talks about he's very self-deprecating, and I just feel as someone who's doing a good balance of having this one thing that he knows he's good at, but also pursuing his dreams of becoming a filmmaker, which he has said. I think it's pretty cool to watch. And nowadays it's not often I come across a new YouTube channel that I'm like, oh shit, this is cool, this is fresh. His videos are not super high production quality. He just films it in his New York apartment, but they're hilarious. So I fucking love his channel. He's my new channel crush.
How do you discover
He's been
it?
around, right? For 1-2 years.
1-2 years.
I feel like I've seen his stuff.
Yeah.
How do you discover it?
I think I saw something on the site, just a day in the life of an engineer. Because now it's day in the life of this. Then I saw day in the life of an engineer at Facebook. I thought it was going to be a serious thing. But I clicked it, it's just a 1-minute short video. And then with YouTube, once you see one, they'll serve you a few more.
Oh yeah.
Then I'm like, oh shit, this guy is funny, man. He's a funny guy. But yeah, I think
so
1-2
it's comedy mostly.
Comedy, but he also talks about more comedy.
Okay.
And he has said he wants to be a film director, so that's why his videos you can see it evolving in terms of its angles and shots and all. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Interesting. So finally, Mr. Yao.
Mr. Yao.
I can talk about a movie, right?
Can, of course.
As long as it's shareable, someone can go watch it or something.
And not in Chinese, as in don't speak in Chinese.
It's in the one of the films I watched recently I really enjoyed was this film called Portrait of a Lady on Fire, by this French director called Céline Sciamma. I don't know if I'm mutilating her name. I think you should be able to get it on Netflix probably. It should be online. It came out the same year as if I'm not mistaken, that Bong Joon-ho won for Parasite.
Yeah.
It's a great film. I really liked it. It's a French female director. The story is about two young ladies in the 19th century. So this girl, this lady, she's supposed to be married off to this aristocrat in Italy. So he doesn't know what she looks like. And so her mother hires a painter to paint a portrait. Right. So this was before social media where you can just send matchmaking. This was like old school matchmaking. So she hired this young girl to draw her portrait. So both ladies are about late teens, early 20s, and then throughout the while she's painting the portrait, they sort of like fall in love with each other. And it's sort of like a sexual awakening for both of them, but it's not lurid or like pornographic. It's actually very romantic, and it's very stylish. And then she eventually marries the aristocrat, and it was just that one brief moment that they had together in their youth.
And what made you want to watch that? You heard about it, or you were just
Because
browsing?
I heard about it. Then I think during the time that Parasite came out, someone mentioned it. Bong Joon-ho also talked about it. So I was like, I want to check this out. She's a young director. I think this is just a second feature film. And, it's not, I mean, it's a French movie, but it's not like one of those obscure, super artistic, weird stuff. It's actually very relatable.
So is it can watch with family on, or don't watch with your mother?
There's a little bit of nudity. If you're okay with that, then that's fine.
It's awkward.
But it's the photography is beautiful. The acting is great. I really enjoyed it.
So
I've been recommending to everyone.
Will you watch with your mother?
I think maybe my mom quite open over the years lah. Like I think and to me that's just funny. Like that kind of awkwardness in front, I think it's funny. I don't know how she feels lah.
You know what they say is like tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Yeah. Correct. See ya.
What's that to do with watching with your mother?
No lah, it's just like the
Because
fact-
you asked whether this is the sort of film you can watch with family.
Yeah, no. So
No, I meant because of the
the
nudity and everything.
yeah lah. But over time, that's what I thought you meant.
I mean, depends on how open your parents are, right? I mean, the nudity is not in a pornographic way. It's
Conservative.
That's what you say now. Something open is like fucking just gangbang, man. Yao, what the fuck?
It's not one shock thing. Not that kind of shock.
I'm a very conservative person, okay, Yao.
Then his level of pornography is
That's why
like,
he's like, no, this is China. You go on the street, you can see already. What?
huh? This is porn? What?
Yeah, but cool, man.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Do you have any Instagram, Facebook page you want to plug, or you like your?
I have an Instagram page, but it's just pictures of my very boring life. So I don't know if you're...
Yeah, your boring life. Working with John Woo and all
But
that.
it's public lah. It's public.
It's a public.
Okay.
Just put it out there. It is.
It is the YLSS. THEYLSS.
YLSS.
The Yao Li Shan with an extra S.
Okay. Cool. All right, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Anything else, Terrence?
No.
All right. Peace out. Thank you guys for listening. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with at least one person who may not have heard of it. And as always, the show notes are on our subreddit. Cool.